Hello, Pagan Pages readers. Robin Fennelly here. This month again, I'm doing my Magical Arts column as a video offering. I thought that would be just kind of fun to explore, maybe for a couple months, just see where we go with this. And especially since everyone is getting a lot more accustomed to using Zoom videos and using all other sorts of technology. So I thought this would be a fun exploration. So I'm going to share my screen now with you, and I have a lot of information that we're going to be going through in this video. And this is part 2 of the ritual writing and creation of sacred space. This is actually going to be the last series or last part of this particular series. And then I'm going to go into something else because I think kind of exhausted this, and in most cases, a lot of what I have been sharing with you could easily have been standalone writings for weeks and weeks and weeks. And what I was trying to do was to just simply give you some explorations and some ideas, and the intention was for you to use them as your own jumping off points. So getting into the work, we're going to talk today about the components of ritual, execution and the how and what, the learning curve, and trial and error. So these are important things that will help to inform you as you are beginning to explore either writing ritual for yourself as a solitary event, or even in helping you formulate your ideas, perhaps a little more organized, if you are writing a ritual for a group or something specific. So to remind you again of what we talked about last month, the components of a ritual, and I had broken them down into the 5 alchemical elements: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. So with the component of earth, this is the place where we begin to form the intention, deciding what it is that we wish to accomplish with whatever the ritual is that we are writing, and or what it is that we are offering up devotion to, whether it be a celebration, a ritual for crossing over, a ritual honoring our ancestors, whatever it may be. The air component provides the ability to structure a blueprint and to also have it organized in a way that you have something that is a container that can hold what this intention is. The water aspect is fueling that desired outcome. This is the place where your emotional self comes into play. And the more passionate you are about something, the more you feel your way through something, often that thing will be much more successful. And that is, after all, the magical component. Fire brings into consideration what actions you will be doing, what vibration you're setting up in the course of your ritual, and how that ritual's rhythm will flow. What will lead from one thing into the next thing, all of the intention of it producing something that is of spirit, an ability to rise on the planes as the higher self is engaged in this work. So as we do ritual, or when we do ritual, and when we've created space for the ritual, created something sacred, cast our circle, all of those various things, the intention is to be a holding place for us as we rise through the astral, rise higher than just our mundane, earthly bound existence. And we move into a place that is much more recognizable as being that higher self within us, and also is the place of resonance so that we can reach out further to whatever it is we're hoping to call into the ritual for it to be effective. So the execution and the how and what. So I have here a basic ritual outline. This is actually a template that I use when I'm teaching ritual writing. It's also a template that our coven uses when our membership is formulating their rituals. This way, it provides some consistency. Now, certainly you don't need to do things in the order that I'm giving you, or even those things that I have here. This is just simply a suggestion. But I have found that it actually brings about an intention of consistency when you have a specific template that you're working with. You can be flexible with it, and you can be resilient and adaptable in accord with whatever it is that you are hoping to accomplish with that particular ritual. But by being able to actually have some sort of an outline, a structure, container, substitute whatever word you wish in there that exemplifies those energies, it offers you actually more freedom to be really creative in the work that you're doing. So, basic ritual outline. The grounding aspect is often presented, if we were doing a group ritual, it would literally be some sort of a very, very brief meditation or path working that everyone would go through. Its purpose, and it is of earth, that's why I have these little things on the right hand column here to kind of overlay it with what we talked about with those components. It is a very earthly thing. When you are grounding, and to incorporate that into your ritual, and again, this is whether you're doing it for yourself or for a group, the outline would remain the same. So when you are grounding, it means that you are connecting with both your manifest self, but you are also connecting with everything that is above, below, as within, and so without. And that is exactly what you're doing. As above, so below, as within, so without. Often the grounding meditations will look something like the analogy of a tree, its roots, meaning you, reaching very deep into the ground, drawing that energy from Mother Earth up into you, allowing it to move through your feet, through your shins, up through your knees, your thighs, into your sex, up into the solar plexus or the center just above your belly button. And then your focus would be towards imagining yourself as being limbs of that tree, leaves of that tree, stretching up, reaching towards the sun itself. This is the component that allows you to bring in the element of power and fire. And also it allows you to be able to reach beyond and reaching out into the cosmos. So you would draw that energy down through the top of your head, down into your, behind your third eye, down into the space of your neck and your throat, down into your heart center. And then those two energies, as above, so below, would come, coordinate together within. So you're reaching deep down into Mother Earth, you're reaching far up into Father Sky. And the product of that is enabling you to remain grounded and tethered and anchored as a corporeal being as you do the work of spirit. The next portion would often be a purification. So the grounding is meant to take you actually out of whatever mundane things you may have brought into that ritual space, allow you to lay them aside so that you can be completely focused and grounded to do the work that is at hand. The next step would be the purification, and it can be a combination of charged salt water and incense. Sometimes we've used heated oil, depending on what the ritual was, and charged water. The idea is the incorporation of earth, air, fire, and water. So when you traditionally purify with incense and with charged salt water, you are combining all four of those elements. The incense serves as the air and fire portion, and the charged salt water serves as the earth and water portion. The charging component of that water versus it just being pure spring water or tap water or whatever, and those are fine to use as well, means that you are taking that water, you, as a sacred act, put the salt into it. You perhaps hold your hand over the top of the container that this is contained in, and you pull up the energy of earth and of water within yourself, and you pour that energy and you pour your interpretation of what those things are into that water, so that as it's being used, it is fully grounded and fully rooted as well. The next step would be the creation of sacred space. So this would be the circle of art, which would serve as a container, which means casting the circle. And I've gone through that in a few I guess, months back. I've gone through ideas for how to cast a circle, what that actually means, and also opening the quarter gates. Who and what you choose to have come into your circle are going to be dependent on what it is that you are holding as the intention for the work at hand. But regardless of what you are doing, you want to create some sort of sacred space. If it's just simply for a contemplative devotional to deity, simplest thing, and especially if it's just for you as a solo, is to envision a sphere of white light encompassing you. The circle of art is not really a circle. It's actually a three-dimensional sphere, if you will, a bubble on the top and a bubble underneath that reaches as above, so below, as within, so without. Theme here. And it is in that container that the work is being done. So if you are doing something that is just a solo venture and you don't want to necessarily call in the quarter energies, which you don't have to do for every ritual, then you could just simply envision yourself being surrounded by a sphere of white light. The invocations, again, are going to be dependent on what it is that you're choosing to do. This is the water component. Just as creating sacred space was the fire or active component, the invocations is the water. Are you going to call in a deity? Is there a specific deity? If it's an esbat, are you going to call in a specific aspect of the goddess for that ritual, or are you just going to simply call in the goddess of the moon? You can also call in specific energetic patterns, meaning that you invoke the energy of healing for your ritual. It's a healing ritual. You're not calling to a specific deity, but you are invoking the energy. To invoke means to have that energy come into the space, and you are inviting it to be in the space with you. Or are you invoking the parts of self? So what this means is that I may not have a specific deity. I may not have in mind a specific energetic signature that I want to happen in the ritual, but let's say the ritual is for a group, and it is a ritual that I am hoping will empower those individuals who are participating. So in that case, instead of invoking specific deities or even invoking the energy of empowerment, what I may do instead is invoke the higher parts of ourselves, which hold the light mantle within them, the higher parts of all the participants within the ritual that are standing in the light of the sun and have the strength and fire that will give them the mantle of ownership over what it is they wish to have occur. After you have created your sacred space and done your invocations, then you would want to make some sort of a statement of intent. This is the air portion. This is the blueprint. This is the guiding factor. So when you are constructing the ritual, you want to make sure that there is a portion in there where you are giving up words, you are giving up vibration, you are giving up the power of creation that comes from those words, breath, and vibration, into a statement that is heard by the seen and the unseen, by your allies and by your aides, guardians, and helpers, so that the entire theme of the ritual is very clear and very precise. So the statement of intent, again, for perhaps a ritual of empowerment, would it be inclusive of those things that I wish to have brought into the space so that my participants may take them home. If it's something that's solitary for myself, my statement of intent may be something that I am doing this ritual of intention that I may step more fully into my power, something like that. And then you come to the working or the celebration. Now, these two things can be kind of interchangeable, or they can also work together. Often when you're doing a celebration of a Sabbat or something like that, there isn't necessarily a working that's included in it. Workings would be something where you are doing high or you are doing low magic. Meaning that you are taking some action, you are perhaps setting a spell into motion, or you are doing some working that is going to bring about the effect that you wish. Often a celebratory ritual excludes that portion of it because it's all about offering up devotion to the season. It's all about celebrating perhaps the deities of those seasons. When we do our rituals and when I write a ritual, I will always put some sort of a working into it. This is just my own thought process, but by including something, even in a celebratory devotional, that makes me have to actively participate in that work, and or perhaps even actively participate after the work of the ritual is finished, gives me ownership of that ritual, so that I'm not just a visitor that's passing through this particularly written ritual and then I forget about it afterwards. So I always try to include something. That is actually the earth, air, fire, water portion, because you're including all of the aspects of yourself. You're including all of those 4 elements into what it is that you are doing. And after you have done the work and you need a place for synthesis, and this is sometimes where in a ritual it's forgotten, that place of synthesis is where earth and spirit meet. It is the as above, so below. It can be as simple as just resting in that space after you've completed your working, perhaps doing a few ohms or toning or something, or even a visualization where you are guided to see the weavings that you've constructed in that ritual coming together and being a whole thing that then you can take forward with you. Gratitude is something that I feel is very important in rituals, and we always include it in the rituals that we do. It again is engaging earth, air, fire, and water, and it can be as simple as a statement of we give thanks, or it can be more elaborate depending on what the ritual is and going into the details of what you are grateful for that you have actually drawn from the space of that ritual. And then thanking deity and or the energies that are invoked. You always want to bid hail and farewell. You always want to acknowledge the help that has been given. You always want to thank those energies for being present and supportive and assisting in your rite or your ritual. And then the last, and that's the fire aspect again, you are actively and passionately doing something that then flows into the releasing of the sacred space, where you are allowing the quarters to close, the quarter gates to close, those energies to return to their realms. And you are also pulling up the structure of the circle that you have cast, or the container that you have been in, and allowing it to be absorbed and transformed by Mother Earth. And that is the place of spirit, releasing that sacred space. You are releasing back into the aethers the things that you have relied upon as you're doing your working. So the learning curve, when you are doing these things, when you are writing a ritual, when you are trying to actually go through the steps of a ritual. So I have trial and error, and this is really the best way to learn how to write a ritual and how to be effective in it. I had come up with a little questionnaire when we were doing some writing of rituals within our group, so that everyone could weigh in and give constructive criticism and praise for things that went well and things that didn't. So in a group ritual, communication. Was the ritual effectively communicated to everyone? So this means that if you're doing a group ritual, it's often a good idea to gather everyone together in the room before you actually go into the ritual itself. It's a good idea if you can have the ritual written out and copied so that people know what is happening and when it is happening. And then we always go over the different aspects of the ritual, because we don't always have the same people coming. And even if it's just within our own group, sometimes things change within a ritual. We tweak it a little bit or whatever. So was the ritual effectively communicated to everyone? And was everyone provided with the information they needed to fulfill roles or other capacities? So often in that outline that I gave you, roles will be assigned to people within the coven, so that they have an opportunity to kind of rotate through casting a circle, giving a statement of intent, invoking a deity, doing a working. So was the necessary information provided to everyone so that they felt comfortable in what they were doing? The intention. Do you feel the intention and construction of the ritual reflected the celebration's overall theme? So this is an important thing. Take a moment to look back and see if you really feel that what you constructed met the needs of what you were hoping. Do you feel the intention of the ritual as written was fulfilled? So the one flows into the other. It's not only about whether or not you feel that the requirements were met, but do you really feel that it was fulfilled in a meaningful way? And do you feel any additional components that may have supported the intention, like chants, readings, workings, path workings? And in what way did they or did they not? So the things that you add into the ritual, placing a chant one place versus placing it after something else happens, may be something that you want to really be mindful of, because the intention of chanting or moving, dancing, that is to raise energy. So if you put it in the very, very beginning, the energy may fall by the time you get to the middle or the working of the ritual. So, and was there a specific reading that perhaps you did, something from the Mabinogion or something from a specific book that you felt would aid it? The timing and the placing of it, did it work or did it not really? The energetic component, do you feel there was sufficient energy raised? Where or did the energy or attention fall? And how could this have been improved upon? Regardless of how successful you feel a ritual is, how energetic you may feel everyone maintained during it, you can always find room for improvement or perhaps lessening. Perhaps people left the ritual or were overwhelmed and overcome by the energy because you had too many things in it. There was too much movement. There was too much chanting. There was too much of this, too much of that. And then the logistics. Do you feel the ritual flowed smoothly and organically? Do you feel any additional components supported the intention? So the logistics of it, literally, the way you plan things out, the structure that you gave it, was it awkward? Were there a lot of awkward moments? Or do you feel that things were written in a way that they just organically flowed one to the other? And would you repeat this ritual? Why or why not? And this might seem like weird questions to ask, but this is how you improve your ritual writing skills. For solitary ritual, it's just a little bit slightly different. So there's no communication to other people. So we jump right into the intention. We go from there to the energetic component and the logistics. Would you repeat this ritual? Why or why not? And how do you feel about writing another ritual? Because in this case, because it was a solitary ritual that you did for yourself, it's really important. Do you feel that you really were able to accomplish what you wanted for yourself? Or would you rather just kind of use a go-to ritual that's already been written out? And that's fine. There's no judgment either way. But knowing that and asking yourself these questions will expand the learning curve. It also will give you an opportunity for trial and error. So a word about the enhancements that I talked about, the components, the smells and bells, as sometimes you might hear it. These are the decor and the ambiance, things that lend themselves. So if you're doing a group ritual and it happens to have an Egyptian theme, if you have some Egyptian iconography that you can put around the space, it helps transport those who are in the ritual into another setting. That's why we do altars. If you are doing a solitary ritual, be mindful of the altar that you may be setting up for yourself, or maybe add an altar for that. And actually, in speaking of altars, I just did a video book review this month on a book entitled The Book of Altars and Sacred Space. And it might be something that you want to check out. There's some beautiful, beautiful altars in this book. The energetic stimulants. These are chants, movement, and specific energetic protocols that you may want to incorporate in there. Whenever we are chanting, whenever we are moving, the idea or intention is to move the energy within the space. That's how magic works. So there are certain energetic stimulants. To sit in a ritual and it be 30 minutes of nothing but contemplation, you could do that, and you could possibly consider that a ritual, but I consider that to be more of a meditation or a contemplative action. So you want to make sure that you have some things in there that are going to energetically stimulate yourself, and if it's a group ritual, will stimulate others. Chanting is a wonderful way to do that. It gets your energy raised. You're using your voice. Often you will want to move. It just organically flows into some sort of movement. And then there are specific energetic protocols you could use as well. If you're familiar with some Eastern practices, you may want to incorporate some pranayama or some breathing exercises in there to get everyone's energy raised. You may want to incorporate something that will raise the kundalini or open the chakras. You know, it's up to you, and decide what will work best. And then consciousness expanding. Do you want to incorporate a path working and or a meditation in there? Path workings are very specific. I wrote an article about that, I think a couple of years ago actually, versus meditation. Meditation is something that you're going to be guiding the individuals along with. You're going to be setting the scenarios. They're going to be very concrete. They're going to be very straightforward. Path workings are a little trickier in that the name path working actually comes from working the paths that are on the Hermetic Kabbalistic tree. And they're much more subtle. The intention is that they are keys that will unlock. So what that means is your setting may not be a beach at sunset with the ocean waters just gently flowing, and you hear the in and out of the waves, and you are calm and you are serene and you are surrendering and you are watching the final rays of the sun. A path working, on the other hand, might have you in a setting of being, let's say, in the desert at sunset, and the sun is lowering behind the pyramid that is off in the distance. And you may see an ankh, or there may be a camel that comes along the way. And it may not make absolute sense, but perhaps the intention is in allowing you to be in a space where your consciousness is opening, where the sun is setting, so you are going within. The camel contains the water. It is a source of longevity in the desert, so that you always can acknowledge that you are never limited in what it is that you are needing. So consciousness expanding, incorporating a path working here or there in your ritual. Usually it would only be one path working or one meditation, because they can be pretty heavy duty, and they also flow back into the energetic stimulants as well. The most important thing is to remember to be creative, to allow for some flexibility and spontaneity, to be purposeful, and then to celebrate your efforts. We can all be harsh critics of those things that we didn't think we achieved. We can all be judgmental of feeling like we didn't reach the bar that we wanted to reach, or my ritual compared to that ritual really sucks. Don't go there, friends. It's energy consuming, it's time wasting. Be creative. Especially if you are constructing rituals for yourself. Actually, that's the place to be creative. Try things on. See what works. What works for you is probably going to also work for some people if you have to do this as a group thing. Allow for some flexibility and spontaneity, but don't be guided in a haphazard way. So it's a fine line between having some structure to what it is you're hoping to achieve, but also being flexible in that if you sense the energy is taking you somewhere else, and it can be as productive, if not more so, being able to be spontaneous and flexible in going down that path instead. Be purposeful. Always have an intention going into it. The deeper the intention is, the more likely you are to hit the mark with what that intention should be and can become. and celebrate your efforts. Celebrate the fact that you even tried, because, you know, the other piece to this is writing a ritual is it's a challenging thing. And especially if you're asked to write a ritual for a group, even if it's a small group that you're very familiar with and they love you and all of those things, it's stressful. You're put on the spot to come up with something that's going to be effective, that is reflective of not only yourself, but shows that you also know what's going on with whomever you're writing this for. So celebrate your efforts. Celebrate everything about what you did to get from point A to point B in that ritual that you have constructed. And if some things didn't work along the way, celebrate your efforts at recognizing that and then doing something the next time that may work a little bit more effectively. So that's it for this month. Next month, we're going to begin a new series, Meditation for Pagan Practitioners. Part 1, I like to incorporate meditation. There are a lot of different things that can be used that are drawn from some of the Eastern practices that we can also use in our work. And even using some mandalas and all of those things, we can construct them so that they are more reflective of what our pathway is, and using some of the symbols and signs that we use normally for our work. So that will be for next month. And it's getting darker in here. Sorry about that, guys. That'll be for next month. And I hope that you have a blessed July. Stay well, stay safe. That's it for Magickal Arts. Thank you for reading paganpages.org. We love to hear your feedback, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone. Blessed be.